edition of World Crisis Radio, and this is Webster Tarpley speaking from Washington, D.C. Now, we need to take a look at this incredible circus around the Fort Hood massacre. I call your attention to an original paper by me entitled Nidal Malik Hassan of Virginia Tech, Bethesda, and Fort Hood, a major patsy in a drill gone live. That's available at various websites. Act Independent will have it, and indeed Tarpley.net will have it sometime during this coming week. Now, to set the stage, this is a tragic event, of course, took place a week ago yesterday from the time we're recording this. 13 dead, and the Army psychiatrist Nidal Malik Hassan accused of murder, facing the death penalty. In this debate, people are divided into two sides. On the one side, we have the left liberals, the Obama acolytes, the Obama supporters. So for them, this is a victim, a troubled, tormented individual who happened to have snapped. As Obama put it in his funeral address, there are going to be instances in which an individual cracks. Now, according to this school, if you say that Hassan is a terrorist, then that is racism and prejudice, and you're being vindictive. On the other side, though, we have the neocons, the reactionaries, the Islamophobes, and those hostile to Obama who choose then to make a big issue out of Major Hassan. And they say this is a homegrown, self-starting Islamic terrorist. He's devoted to jihad. He loves suicide bombing. He wants to make contact with Al-Qaeda. He wants the caliphate. He's seething with hatred for America, for freedom, and for his fellow soldiers. And, of course, this then says this is the fruits of multiculturalism in the Democratic Party, and Obama is soft on terrorism, and if it hadn't been for that, Hassan might have been neutralized, and even now, after the fact, Obama and his gang will not tell the truth. Now, let's be clear. I condemn both of these views. They are stupid, naive, inadequate. They are superficial, above all, naive. These are two prongs of an articulated campaign of media hysteria and mass manipulation designed to do two things: to prod Obama, the dithering Wall Street puppet, into making the decision in favor of escalation in Afghanistan. Give him a big push. Obama is dithering. Obama is stalling. He can see that his own political survival is not going to be well served by the massive escalation demanded by McChrystal. Then there's also the transformative effects inside the United States. The idea here is to take the Tea Party movement, and whatever they are, and it is a mixed bag, some good elements, some not so good, some bad, to push all of this in an Islamophobic and racist direction, to re-recruit the Tea Party people, if you will, for the global war on terror, which was not originally part of their design, right? They're concerned about taxation, big government, and the usual litany. They seem to allow themselves to be led around by Republican demagogues. But now the idea is make them into Islamophobes supporting imperialism, which up to now had not been one of their main issues. Now, remember, the goal in escalating in Afghanistan is the breakup of Pakistan and therefore an attack on China. You break up Pakistan, you're threatening China, you're also threatening Iran, so you're doing something geopolitical. So, all this past week, the usual reactionary ogres of the right-wing reactionary radio dial, Limbaugh, Beck, Kennedy, Levin, want to push this aspect. Now, what is the reality? I remind you of the fundamental work in this field, which is 9/11 synthetic terrorism. I wrote it in 2005 and updated it through quite a few editions. When you look at a terrorist event of this sort, you've got to distinguish the various planes of activity. It's not all one mass of ingredients. You have got your patsies. You've got the people like Oswald or Sirhan or Hinckley or Cho. You have got your moles. You've got the people who might think of Dave Frasca of the FBI in this regard, right? That guy who couldn't put together the Minnesota report with the Phoenix memorandum and realized that an operation was going on. And, of course, this The idea of a mole is that you're marching to the beat of a private network, a Wall Street-dominated private network. This is not a government policy. It's a Wall Street policy brought into government through the rogue network, through this parallel government, which has been there since Grover Cleveland capitulated to J.P. Morgan in 1895. That's a long story. You've got your patsies, you've got your moles, and then you got your technicians. You got the people who really can do the things that are attributed to the poor scapegoated patsies. Now, therefore, I would urge people, look at Hassan as a patsy. Now, he's obviously a deeply troubled individual. Let's look at him as a combination of several ingredients. The troubled loner, classic, Lee Harvey Oswald. Let's look at Mohammed Atta, the alleged terror pilot. Of course, he couldn't be a pilot. He thought he was an actor in a drill. Mohammed Atta on 9/11. And Cho Seung-hui, the so-called 2007 Virginia Tech shooter. We also got to think of Sirhan, and Hinckley, and any number of others. John Allen Muhammad was executed this past week. The difference is this. Up to now, Islamic terrorists have come in groups, right? There's a communitarian, social, collectivist aspect to the Islamic fundamentalist terrorists, so-called, as they've been dished up by the intelligence agencies. But in this case, it's a loner. So now it's a troubled Islamic fundamentalist loner. Oswald Atta Hinckley, and someone who's also a psychotic. He's beyond Oswald in the psychosis. He's more in the direction of Hinckley or Cho. So a fanatic, a misfit, a quasi-psychotic, and again, couldn't stay in business without protection in high places. Now, therefore, the question is, if we want to look at Hassan as a dupe, as a patsy, and see how this plays out within the events that we've observed, you would have to find, let's get some evidence. Let's not listen to the talking heads on television. Let's listen to what the troops say. Now, if you scan what the individual soldiers who were witnesses of this massacre say, the one thing they all agree on is, at the beginning, they thought it was a drill. They thought it was a drill. They thought it was an exercise. Now, this takes us back to one of the main elements that I point out in 9/11 synthetic terror. We have moles, we have patsies, we have technicians. It's all done through drills. You take a drill, you take an exercise, you flip it live. You take it live. You transform it with actually somewhat minor changes, at least at the beginning, that then turn the drill from pretend attack into real attack. So let's listen to Kira Bono says, when Hassan stood up and praised Allah, well, she doesn't even say that, but she says she thought it was a drill. She didn't believe it was a drill until she saw that she was bleeding. That's from ABC News, Good Morning America. Milwaukee Journal Sentinel. PFC Amber Barr of Random Lake, Wisconsin, says, we thought supervisors at Fort Hood were holding a drill last Thursday. She didn't know she was under live fire until she heard people screaming. Then we have Corporal Nathan Hewitt tells CBS News correspondent Don Teague, he thought the gunfire was a training exercise and that he'd been hit by a rubber bullet. He says that other victims thought the same thing. ABC News, Bob Woodruff talks to Captain Dory Karskadon, who says she initially thought the shooting was a drill. Now, that's a captain. We'll be back in a minute with more.